I'd been working at the local market for 6 months, usually on day shifts, but Roger, the night manager, called out sick, and my boss begged me to cover. She insisted it would be quiet since hardly anyone shops at midnight. At first, she seemed right. The store was silent except for the low hum of refrigeration units and the flicker of overhead lights. I moved through the aisles with my price gun, sticking new labels on cans and cereal boxes. It was almost soothing. Around 12:45 a.m., the automatic doors at the entrance slid open. Sometimes they triggered on their own, but this time, a man stepped in. He looked to be in his late 40s, tall, wearing a navy windbreaker and carrying a plastic grocery bag with a few items already inside. Nothing seemed alarming at first, so I didn't pay much attention, but he avoided looking at me as he headed deeper into the store. It was obvious he was deliberately avoiding eye contact, and that struck me as odd. I tried to remind myself that plenty of people shop at odd hours for random things. Still, an uneasy feeling settled in my chest. I'd always been told that after midnight, nothing good ever happens. I hoped this would be an exception. A while later, I was stocking paper towels when I noticed him again. He stood partway down the aisle, staring directly at me without moving or even pretending to shop. A remote figure, eyes fixed on me. I asked if he needed help, trying to sound casual, but he didn't answer. He simply turned and disappeared down the aisle. Chills rushed down my spine. I went back to my task, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Soon after, I saw him again near the freezer section. He'd lined up several shopping carts into a strange barricade across the aisle. It didn't make any sense. His behavior kept escalating, and I honestly didn't know what to do. I walked closer, cautiously. He turned toward me then, his eyes wide and glassy, and started speaking rapidly about how people were watching him. He seemed convinced that cameras in the store were spying on him and insisted he couldn't let anyone track him. His voice grew sharper, more agitated with each word. When I tried to radio security, all I got was static. As I turned to hurry toward the front of the store, he intercepted me near the registers. He pulled a box cutter from his pocket, flicking the blade open with a quick snap. My legs felt frozen as I stumbled backward into the gum racks. He advanced slowly, still muttering about conspiracies and people listening. Desperate, I grabbed a bottle of olive oil from a nearby shelf and hurled it at him. The glass shattered on the floor, sending oil spraying everywhere. He slipped and crashed down hard, the box cutter skidding across the tiles. Shaking, I managed to grab my radio again and screamed for help. A security guard rushed in from the back, followed quickly by police. They arrested the man who was still rambling about being tracked. The next day, my boss told me he'd been arrested before for stalking. Apparently, he'd been living out of his car and believed grocery stores were filled with hidden listening devices. You never really know what's going on in someone's mind. I still don't fully know why he did this. I've had to go to therapy multiple times a week since it happened. It helps, a little, but that night felt like living inside a real-life horror movie, unscripted. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I was ready for another night on the job. I was struggling mentally, so I was hoping tonight's shift would distract me from the fact my girlfriend and I had been arguing. It was just past 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. We closed at 11, and only a few customers were left. I was helping my coworker Jasmine with inventory in the dairy section when we heard a loud, metallic clanging echoing from the back storage area. Jasmine figured it was probably the compressor acting up again, So we went to check. The noise grew louder as we entered the back room, a frantic pounding coming from the industrial freezer where we kept bulk frozen goods. The door was latched shut, though it was supposed to stay slightly ajar when occupied. I called out to see who was inside, but there was no answer, just more pounding. My stomach tightened as I reached for the handle. Jasmine stopped me, worried that it could be a robbery or someone hiding back there. We decided to call the store manager, Mr. Wilson. He arrived, annoyed and convinced it was kids playing pranks. But when he opened the freezer, cold air poured out like fog, and inside was a young woman in jeans and a thin hoodie, shivering so badly her teeth were chattering. Her lips were tinged blue. Jasmine and I quickly wrapped her in blankets and tried to keep her awake while Mr. Wilson called 911. Between shivers and tears, she explained that a man had dragged her into the store's loading dock after following her for days. She'd first noticed him lurking around her car in the parking lot earlier that evening. Panicked, she'd run into the store to hide. When he chased her through the aisles, the only place she thought he wouldn't look was the industrial freezer. She'd wedged herself inside and accidentally locked the latch from the inside. Paramedics arrived to check her for hypothermia while Mr. Wilson reviewed the security footage. That's when we saw him, the man in a dark hoodie, following her down every aisle. He hovered inches behind her at times, pretending to browse whenever she stopped. I felt sick seeing how close he'd stayed to her. Police arrived soon after and searched the store. They found the man crouched behind a cereal display, hiding among family-sized boxes of cornflakes. In his pockets, he carried duct tape and zip ties. After he was led away in handcuffs, I stood under the harsh fluorescent lights, struggling to believe how normal the store had seemed only hours earlier. Before that night, it was just another part of my job, a place for frozen peas and tubs of ice cream. Now it's something I see in my nightmares. For months afterward, I kept dreaming about icy air burning my skin, about shadows moving behind me in the aisles, about being trapped somewhere cold and silent, waiting for someone to find me, or not. People think working in a grocery store is routine, boring even. But dealing with something like that changes you. It leaves a mark you can't scrub off, no matter how many shelves you stock. My perspective on grocery stores at night have permanently changed. Working in a store at night might seem peaceful, but it comes with risks most people never think about. Always stay aware of your surroundings, even during slow shifts. Trust your instincts if someone's behavior feels off. It's better to be cautious than caught off guard. Make sure you know where emergency exits and panic buttons are located. Never hesitate to call for help or involve security if a situation feels unsafe. Your safety is worth more than any shift or task on the job.